What he's claiming is that the spirits have spoken to me, and they have given me powers.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most prominent, bizarre historical figures based on behavior, lifestyles, and/or actions.
All great artists, and Tesla saw himself as an artist, feel that they're instruments of a higher purpose, and Tesla certainly felt that he was working along those lines.
Number 20. Salvador Dali.
Salvador Dali's gift for self-publicity made him the first art superstar of the television age.
Salvador Dali was born in 1904, around 9 months after the death of his namesake brother. The artist often claimed that he had somehow stolen the life of his brother. Dali was plagued with timidity and a range of phobias, yet also displayed perverse behaviors and exhibitionist tendencies, a walking oxymoron.
Dali is the incarnation of the divine Hermes.
He was obsessed with Sigmund Freud's work and did his best to incorporate these concepts into his art. He called this the paranoid critical method, an attempt to access his subconscious and display its inner workings in his artwork. Dali embellished his own life story to render it more impressive, displayed outlandish behaviors, donned an absurdly magnificent mustache, and was known to say things like, quote, "I don't do drugs, I am drugs."
Dali once said he would never really die. It's the sort of grandiose statement he was famous for, but it has a ring of truth, for his enduring fame and his impact on popular culture has given him a kind of immortality.
Number 19. Hans Christian Andersen.
In his autobiography, The Fairy Tale of My Life, he described himself as a Buckland, a plant that had its roots deeply anchored in mire and mud.
Hans Christian Andersen was born to an impoverished Danish family, though it is said that his father insisted his lineage was noble, later officially disproved. He is best known for authoring many fairy tales, such as The Little Mermaid. Andersen felt like an outcast his entire life.
He not only broke existent patterns, he also transposed everyday life and experiences into art because he was never able to find inner rest in outer reality.
This is reflected in much of his work. He had his eccentricities as well. He was prone to childish tantrums and had multiple phobias, even going so far as leaving a note on himself every night claiming he was not dead, as he had a serious buried alive fear. He famously wore out his welcome as a house guest to Charles Dickens, spending 5 weeks instead of the agreed-upon fortnight and angering the Englishmen into ending their friendship.
He rose up, became famous and admired, wealthy. But he never felt he had arrived at the point where he could feel independent and at peace there.
Number 18. Tycho Brahe.
The 16th century scholar who accurately predicted planetary motion and catalogued hundreds of stars before the telescope had been invented also had a cosmic-sized personal life.
The second Dane on our list is 16th century astronomer, alchemist, and astrologer Tycho Brahe, a Renaissance triple threat, so to speak. He famously lost part of his nose in a duel and wore false noses made of brass when out in public. Brahe was given a fortune and his own island to do his research, and such power went to his head.
Called Uraniborg and costing about 1% of Denmark's entire budget, this observatory was more of a castle, containing formal gardens, rooms for family, staff, and visiting royalty.
He heavily taxed the island's unfortunate inhabitants, as well as had them build an extravagant castle in which to house his observatory. Brahe was known for his ostentatious parties, during which his land's fauna, moose and elk, would join him for drinks. He also had a court jester for entertainment, a person with dwarfism named Jeppe, who slept under a table.
The next time you think scientists lead boring lives, dig a little deeper. A fascinating story may be just beyond the tip of your nose.
Number 17. Abu Ali Mansour.
To some, the enlightened philosopher king of Shia Islam, and to others, a mad tyrant responsible for untold cruelty and persecution.
Abu Ali Mansour, better known as Al-Hakim bi Amir Allah, was an Egyptian caliph in the early 11th century. He is mentioned in Western history as a great influence on the Crusades due to his persecution of Christians. During his reign, a sect developed, the Druze, whose members saw the caliph as a divine manifestation. The quote-unquote mad caliph wished to prevent women from leaving their homes, so he tried to outlaw the making of women's shoes. He also forbade a local dish, mulukhia, as it was a staple of previous rulers. He enforced the eradication of all dogs, as the barking was a nuisance. One night in 1021, a 35-year-old al-Hakim left his home for his typical meditation walk and vanished, never to return.
His mysterious death only added to the colourful personality of the Fatimid Imam Caliph al-Hakim bi Amma Allah.
Number 16. Field Marshal Gebhard Liebknecht von Blücher.
A very interesting, extremely aggressive and bloodthirsty person who hated Napoleon and the French.
Though a highly decorated soldier throughout Europe between 1760 and 1815, roughly between the 7 Years and Napoleonic Wars, Gebhard Liebknecht von Blücher was a troubled man. He suffered a number of episodes. He sometimes sat motionless for hours. When he chose to stand, the floor was lava and he had to hop around. He famously suffered a phantom pregnancy, believing a French soldier had forced himself upon him and impregnated von Blücher with an elephant. This was all the combination of physical and mental illness, but you can't deny the eccentricity of his delusions. He was, thankfully, fully capable in times of battle. Following the Battle of Waterloo, he was heard to say he felt an elephant while holding his midsection. He then retired. Number 15. Hunter S. Thompson.
How are you?
Oh, I am terrible.
What's the matter? You don't...
Well, I've been going to court every morning for 2 weeks at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
American writer and journalist Hunter Stockton Thompson was a particularly incendiary character. He was discharged from the military due to insubordination. He then famously wrote for Rolling Stone, as well as numerous political publications and newspapers. In 1970, Thompson ran for sheriff of a Colorado town, advocating for decriminalization of illicit substances and banning tall, view-obscuring buildings. He lost.
It's very hard to have a bald-headed lunatic. I'll do that for the cameras. All right! I've already made up my mind, as a matter of fact. This is my last trip in politics. Or this kind of politics. I assure you I'll be in other kind of politics. I'm not sure which way I'll go, but it'll be one or the other. It won't be down this middle anymore.
In the mid-60s, Thompson began to use Dexedrine to fuel his muse, eventually moving on to stronger substances, never quite looking back. He once confided to a friend that he wouldn't feel completely free knowing he couldn't take his own life whenever he wanted. Thompson died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound in 2005. His ashes were shot out of a cannon at the full moon.
He was worshipped by fans, loved by celebrities. But in the end, it wasn't enough.
Number 14. Tommy Wiseau. In 2003, a film called The Room was released. Up until then, we'd never heard of Thomas Pierre Wiseau. Now, we all know he is arguably the worst filmmaker/actor in recent history.
Did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
But where did he come from? Oddly enough, Wiseau has been particularly mysterious about his origins, making vague comments here and there, but never quite pinning down any facts, from his age to his place of birth.
You are, what, 36, 37 years old?
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You will not say where you're from?
No, I can tell you.
Oh, tell me.
Yeah, I'm originally from Europe, but I'm right now American.
Any description of his past is riddled with claims. He allegedly has a degree in psychology, worked as a street vendor in California, took acting classes, perhaps the boldest claim, etc. The Room was based on an unpublished novel by Wiseau and had a $6 million budget, the source of which remains a mystery.
James, I think you should look at lighting in the beginning of film. Like, you'd think he was gonna say, like, no, that didn't happen, or whatever. He's like, no, look at the lighting in the beginning of film, I think a little off. What I realized is he was wearing the glasses during the...
Number 13, Diogenes.
He spent years wandering around Greek cities with nothing but a cloak, staff, and knapsack.
Greek philosopher Diogenes was born around 405 BCE and eventually became one of the founders of Cynicism. His father worked for the mint and was once accused of debasement of currency, fraudulently lowering the value of coins and lying about their precious metal weight. Perhaps an influence on the birth of cynicism? Diogenes himself was an odd character, known for his vagrancy. He was also known for sleeping in a large ceramic pot in the marketplace.
The citizens called him a kuon, a barking dog. Though meant as an insult, dogs were actually a good symbol for his philosophy. They're happy creatures, free from abstractions like wealth or reputation.
He was recognized for his eccentric stunts, such as carrying a lit lantern around in the daytime claiming to be, quote, looking for an honest man. We get it. Cynicism. He also allegedly disrupted Socrates by bringing food and eating during his lectures. Not okay, Diogenes. Number 12. William Buckland. William Buckland was a late 18th and early 19th century English theologian, paleontologist, geologist, and eventually Dean of Westminster. A busy man, but also a strange one. Buckland was very passionate during his lectures, known for his drama and devotion, going as far as physically acting out the movements of various dinosaurs. He also wore an academic gown during his fieldwork, which, let's face it, is just pretentious. His home was filled with specimens, including a table adorned with petrified dinosaur feces. Hopefully it wasn't the dining table.
William and his wife Mary taught their children natural history in a house packed to the rafters with specimens. Animal, vegetable, and mineral, living and dead.
Buckland also boasted having eaten most animals and insects because, who knows?
Dinner at the Buckland house could consist of hedgehog, crocodile, panther, sea slug, porpoise, mole, and even earwig.
He allegedly once accidentally ate part of the mummified heart of the former king of France, Louis XIV. Yum! Number 11. Isaac Newton. Genius and eccentricity often go hand in hand. Such was the case with Isaac Newton.
Only 25 years old, Newton had made some of the most stunning breakthroughs in the history of science. But he kept them almost entirely to himself, just as he had done with calculus.
Born in England on Christmas Day in 1642, Newton would go on to be a polymath, one who was knowledgeable in various subjects. He was a physicist, astronomer, alchemist, theologian, mathematician, and inventor of the fig Newton. Okay, maybe not that last thing. Newton was known for being paranoid around his peers, for great fear that they would steal his ideas and theories. He would occasionally experiment on himself, once even inserting a needle under his eyeball to study the perception when the eye was shifted.
Fortunately, Newton found a safer way to investigate light and color, using a prism.
He also stared at sunlight for dangerous periods. What he had against his own eyes, we'll never know. Number 10. David Bowie.
You and Elvis have the same birthday?
Yeah, we were drinking buddies way back. I used to fly over to Memphis and we'd go out for the night on the Raz, big Cadillac, big Cadillac.
Is there any truth to any of this? No.
I was told that was true.
David Bowie, born David Robert Jones, kind of made his career out of being a chameleon weirdo. Bowie was born in 1947 and was said to be gifted yet rebellious at the early age of 6. He showed interest in music and dancing from grade school, encouraged to pursue it by his father. By the late 1960s, Bowie was heavily into dramatic study, prompting him to create multiple personae in his music career. Ziggy Stardust, Aladdin Sane, the Thin White Duke, and the Blind Prophet.
There's a starman waiting in the sky.
From an androgynous extraterrestrial, to the dark and sinister half of the latter, to the controversially opinionated Pierrot, to the mournful prophet accepting his death, David Bowie was one of a kind.
I saw my baby crying hard as babe could cry. What could I do?
Number 9. Lord Byron.
The true value of his poetry is often forgotten, and his live fast, die young modern lifestyle glorified in the name of celebrity.
George Gordon Byron was one of the most prominent names in Romantic literature. Byron was born with a club foot, giving him a limp as well as self-consciousness. Despite this, he refused to wear a brace and nicknamed himself Le Diable Boiteux, which is French for the limping devil. He was reportedly a beautiful man and excessively exercised, as well as displayed some odd disorder-style eating habits.
In English culture, His abiding image is not that of a political radical or brilliant versifier. It is of a womanizer in an open-necked shirt, an aristocratic poseur and self-consciously romantic adventurer.
While studying at Cambridge, he was irked by the no dogs allowed rule, so he adopted a tame bear instead. He was obsessed with the supernatural, donning his estate with the skulls of his ancestors used as flower pots and goblets. Let's have a toast to Byron, from the skull of Grandpa. Number 8. Albert Einstein. German-born theoretical physicist and mathematical genius Albert Einstein was, wait for it, a weirdo.
Many teachers from when his high school days on were convinced he'd never amount to anything. He was a discipline problem. I mean, he was bad news.
His behaviors were odd, and at times just gross. Einstein was fond of picking up grasshoppers and eating them to unnerve his friends. He smoked cigarettes for most of his life, and when forced to quit by his doctor, he would pick up and smoke butts off the street. He hated socks and never wore them. No one needs foot prisons, man. Or personal hygiene, apparently, as Einstein rarely practiced it. That tousled hair, not hairspray, just a lack of shampoo. He also had a passion for sailing, though he wasn't any good at it. He often capsized and had to be rescued. Oh, and he couldn't swim.
It's extremely encouraging that, though, he was able, with pure thought, to solve the riddle of the universe.
Number 7. King Charles VI of France. The monarchies have had their fair share of interesting characters. King Charles VI of France was definitely one to remember. He lived with mental illness and was prone to episodes that involved attacking his own men, claiming he was St. George, selective amnesia, and refusing to bathe for months at a time.
They had no way to defend themselves against their king. He killed 4 of them before they managed to calm him down. The crisis passed, but over the years his madness grew.
He reportedly had iron rods sewn into the lining of his clothing to avoid shattering, as he believed he was made of glass, an affliction diagnosed and named glass delusion in the late Middle Ages.
If anybody touched him, he would shatter.
He would race around the hallways of his home destroying things and eventually passing out from exhaustion. He believed he was possessed at one point, and attempts at exorcism were made. They didn't work. Number 6. Oscar Wilde.
There was nothing I said or did that did not make people wonder. I awoke the imagination of my century, so that it created myth and legend around me.
Irish poet, playwright, and witty poster boy for aestheticism and decadence, Oscar Wilde was born in 1854. He became a big name through his stage plays and only novel The Picture of Dorian Gray, also through his indiscretions and unlawful behaviors at the time. While studying at Magdalen College in Oxford, Wilde was known for his extravagant decor, sunflowers, peacock features, blue china. He was also known as a dandy, or one who places importance on the artificial and refined.
His most famous remark in undergraduate days was,
I find it harder and harder every day to live up to my blue china.
Despite his marriage to Constance Lloyd in 1884, Wilde was gay, having many trysts with lover Lord Alfred Douglas and male sex workers. This was illegal at the time, and Wilde spent 2 years in prison. He was posthumously pardoned in 2017.
He was the man of the moment. So his fall, when it came, was precipitous, instantaneous, and very, very frightening.
Number 5. Andy Warhol.
Andy Warhol's greatest work of art is Andy Warhol.
He was big. Andy Warhol was an American artist, film producer, and director. He was an enigmatic personality, yet arguably perhaps not as odd in behavior as some of the others on this list. He was instrumental in the pop art movement in the 1950s. Warhol had studied and worked in advertising illustration in his past. He is famous for use of marketed items in his work, the Campbell's soup cans to name but one.
What was the interest to you then in that Campbell's soup tin? What gave you the idea of doing that?
Oh, I used to eat it every day. I still do, so.
Warhol was openly gay, yet claimed to be chaste, a declaration that would be disproved by many. He was an avid collector of, well, everything. 641 boxes of stuff were emptied out of his apartment upon his death. The boxes contained everything from airplane menus to cookie jars to a mummified human foot.
How much do you think of your success as an artist, probably the best known in the world at the moment, is as a result of your own personal image, yourself as a work of art?
Well, that's what everybody says. I don't know. I work all the time.
Number 4, Pythagoras. There are no surviving Pythagoras writings, so some of these things may be apocryphal. All aspects are heavily debated. Pythagoras was born in 570 BCE in ancient Greece. He was a philosopher and polymath, math being a large part of that poly. Remember high school formulas? He was also the leader of a bizarre commune of followers. One of their primary beliefs was that beans shouldn't be eaten as they harbor the souls of the dead.
There are stories about Pythagoras refusing to eat beans. This is usually connected with a belief that does seem to be a strong part of Pythagoreanism, of the reincarnation of souls.
Pythagoras proved this by growing some and noting that they were shaped like human fetuses. You couldn't eat or stomp on beans, as this would be cannibalism and murder, respectively.
In fact, another thing that the Pythagoreans became famous for was their practice of silence, both in a literal sense of just being silent and not talking. Some sources claim that a person who wanted to become a Pythagorean had to observe a 5-year silence.
The philosopher supposedly died as he was being chased and refused to run through a bean field, leading to his stabbing. Number 3, Nikola Tesla.
In the end, others made fortunes with his inventions, and he wound up penniless and rejected.
Once again, with great genius comes great eccentricity. Serbian-American inventor and engineer Nikola Tesla is primarily known for his contributions to alternating current electricity. Anyone close to him, however, would have known him for his bizarre behaviors. Tesla had obsessive-compulsive disorder, prompting him to do things in threes. He was obsessed with pigeons, even once confessing to have fallen in love with one. This is despite his fear of germs, oddly enough. He disliked pearls and earrings to the point of refusing to speak to women wearing them. He never married and died a bachelor. According to confiscated documents following his death, he was working on a, quote, death ray. So there's that.
All great artists, and Tesla saw himself as an artist, feel that they're instruments of a higher purpose, and Tesla certainly felt that he was working along those lines.
Number 2, Grigory Rasputin.
He was a stranic, a kind of traveling preacher. Not a priest, not a monk, but what he really was a shaman.
Russian mystic and faith healer Grigory Yefimovich Rasputin wasn't nearly as fun as the song makes him sound. He had a religious experience in 1897 and eventually made his way to St. Petersburg, meeting Tsar Nicholas II and his wife Alexandra. Rasputin became healer to the royal couple's son Alexei, who suffered from hemophilia.
What he's claiming is that the spirits have spoken to me, and they have given me powers. So what are the powers he claimed to have? Well, the two most important, prophecy and healing.
He was believed to have improved the child's health, therefore securing a place and influence in the palace. He had a cult-like following and claimed that sexual contact with him had a purifying effect. He was thought impossible to kill, surviving multiple assassination attempts. He was stabbed in the stomach, yet recovered. He was then offered poisoned tea and cakes, inexplicably surviving both. The perpetrators then just opted to shoot him, successfully. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
Fart jokes, poop jokes, and sex jokes have no place in classical music, right?
Arguably the most recognizable name in music, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart wasn't without his eccentricities. The Austrian composer was a musical prodigy, showing promise as young as 4 years old. In his short life, he died at 35, Mozart produced over 800 musical pieces. For a distinguished composer, he had a bizarre phobia of trumpets. Accounts from family members state he would become weak and pale at the sound, and holding a trumpet in front of or towards him was akin to pointing a gun. He was also known for his scatological humor, meaning involving human waste. A little too much, actually. He wrote dozens of letters heavily laden with poop jokes.
In a letter to his cousin, Mozart writes, "Oh, my burns like fire. What on earth is the meaning of this? Maybe Muck wants to come out?"
He even composed scatological music, which he shared with his friends. Charming. Did we leave any historic weirdos out? Let us know in the comments.
Is there life on Mars?
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.